One of the traditional three ways encompassed in the fourth way is the way of the fakir, the way of the body, or as the fourth way calls it, the way of the instinctive moving center. This way or path is by means of enduring physical pain and hardship, enduring them purposely, knowingly, with the goal of using pain as a catalyst for the conscious transformation of awareness, and thereby transcending the body. The way of the monk aims for the same thing via transcendence of the emotions, particularly difficult emotions, as does the way of the yogi via transcendence of thought and the mind and the struggles that take place in the mind. On all three ways, the intent is to go beyond the feeling of I in each of the three centers, with suffering providing the catalyst for this. And on all three ways, the main ingredient is the intention, the aim, and the understanding behind why it's necessary to sacrifice the comfort of each center, and then to bring this aim and understanding as consciously as possible to the suffering at hand. This same thing is behind what the fourth way calls voluntary suffering or conscious suffering. This does not mean voluntarily creating suffering for yourself, but rather voluntarily accepting the suffering that comes in the course of your life experiences, and then voluntarily accepting it for the purpose of consciously embracing the energy in the suffering and using that energy as a catalyst, as a springboard for heightening awareness. Physical pain, which is the domain of the fakir, is the most obvious example of suffering, followed closely by emotional pain, which corresponds to the monk, and psychological pain, which corresponds to the yogi. But the differences are not so important. What's important to understand is that all suffering, in all the centers and on all the ways, is something that human beings resist more strongly than anything else in their lives. And it's this resistance to suffering that the fourth way addresses with the idea of voluntary, conscious suffering. In this sense, it's not so much about the suffering itself, the pain, but about giving up the resistance to it and yielding as fully as possible to the pressure that is being blocked by the resistance. The transformation of conscious awareness involves pressure, and full transformation cannot happen without it. The personification of this is the story of the life of Jesus, who by virtue of not resisting his suffering and by embracing it consciously, with the consciousness of awareness, he underwent the transformation that yielded Christ. In that story, the physical crucifixion stands out as the most obvious symbol of suffering and transformation and transfiguration. And it may well be that 2,000 years ago, the primary way or path, the primary vehicle for conscious transformation was the way of the fakir. But the story of Christ also includes the other two ways in his having to endure the emotional pain of being rejected and falsely accused and humiliated, as well as having to endure the mental anguish of his powerful message being misunderstood, distorted, taken literally, and ultimately being frozen into the form of formal religion. What is so beautiful and so inspiring, however, is that all of these forms of pain, physical, emotional, and mental, and all of the possibilities for transforming them are exactly what the fourth way addresses as part of the ordinary daily lives and ordinary daily deaths of human beings. It's a matter of understanding this, wanting to establish a specific aim in relation to it, and then voluntarily, knowingly, consciously embracing the pressure that life brings in small and large ways, as it eventually does for everyone.